So we lost a legend while I was out on my trip down the river on the river cruise, and I thought I would talk to Taylor about Charlie Munger. What are some
Yeah,
of the quotes? What are some of the memories you have? I don't know if you've ever met him. I had not ever met him,
I
but
have not.
I've been
Nope.
but been reading his stuff for quite a while. So yeah, rest in peace, Charlie Munger. What do you remember about him?
The biggest life takeaway I think that I've gotten from Charlie Munger, and I'm not saying that I want to work to the day I die like he did, but how good of a lesson is it to take away and say, like, okay, keeping your mind active, and his was obviously incredibly active because
Yeah,
he
he
was
was
very
sharp to
involved
the
in the day to
very
day.
end.
He was
Yeah.
so sharp. And it's like how many folks just remove themselves of all responsibility of thinking and dementia kicks in and things like that. And this is not a medical show. I'm not I'm not
Yeah.
an expert in
No
any stretch
idea.
of the
Sounds good
imagination.
to me.
But I think his Warren Buffett's sharp mind is a
Yeah.
testament to like keeping that mind active over time is something that keeps you sharp till the end, or at least helps along that progression.
Yeah, one of the things that I appreciate about Charlie Munger, and I guess I knew it all along, but I spent a bunch of time reading about Charlie after he passed. I don't know, it's something I do, right? When somebody I respect, I go back and revisit a lot of
Sure.
stuff. So probably spent 10 hours reading stuff about Charlie or things he wrote or watched interviews. And one of the things that I thought was subtle that didn't get celebrated enough was he highlighted that envy is the problem.
Yep.
Right, and especially in today's world where social media really sparks that in you, right? Think about, Charlie Munger around Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett for a long time was the richest guy on the planet,
Yep.
and he was not, by a long shot, and, it could have been very easy for him, and another thing is he never upgraded his I mean, he could have had a big mansion and all these other things, and he had a lot of kids and all of it. He just he just didn't let keeping up with the Joneses or whatever that is, didn't do those things, and I think there's a real secret in that. If you don't get envious, you don't feel bad about what you have or don't have, and you're happier. Envy, in my opinion, leads to unhappiness, and I think we have so much unhappiness today because of envy, and that was something that really hit me as I was going back and reading his stuff.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I'll give another phenomenal, trait of Charlie's, and I think it plays out in two different ways. Loyalty, and his
Mm,
loyalty to Berkshire, his loyalty to Warren Buffett, was something that doesn't happen in the market these days. How many people do you know have a great investment team? It's not a team. It's that one person, that one figurehead that is always the guy, whether it's Bill Ackman, Paul Tudor Jones, you name them, Ray Dalio,
right.
etc. It was the dynamic duo with the two of them. And they were
Yeah.
loyal to each other. And loyalty is not easy in markets that are looked at every single day. And so when you look back to 2021 and things are absolutely ripping and people are going, Warren Buffett's a moron. And
Mm.
Charlie's going, listen, we're loyal to each other. I will explain to you exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And guess what? Their value bias in 2022 comes and plays out in spades. And so
Yeah.
the first loyalty is to people, the second loyalty is to process. And so they were loyal to their process about fundamental analysis and looking at companies and their intrinsic value. And I think that, there is loyalty to a fault. They did change the way they worked over time and kept up with the times. But the true tenets of what they looked for in investment really never changed throughout history. And the loyalty to that process played out with them being two of the greatest investors we've ever seen.
The other thing I think that Charlie Munger doesn't get enough credit for is Warren Buffett, when he starts his fund, he was buying basically what I think was called cigarette butts,
Cigarette butts. Yep.
right? Which basically was bad companies at a really cheap price, and you would get a little pop. You get that last puff, right?
Correct. Yep.
And Charlie Munger really helped Buffett see that you should buy good companies at a decent price,
Correct.
which is a completely different lens, attitude, and you obviously should. One of the things that they both were hold for the long term, right? You don't have to swing at every pitch. Uh,
Yep.
just wait for this. So I think that was another, because Berkshire Hathaway would not be where it is today if it was only buying cigarette butts.
Absolutely not. And so, like, for an easier, simplistic way for people to think about this is Warren Buffett would look at a company, analyze the underlying value of the assets, and saying, "Hey, if you're trading at a lower value than your underlying assets, I'm willing to buy you." And
Yeah,
that
exactly.
inevitably puts you in the dark camps of, again, places that have incredibly deep value right now, but at the end of the day, they were things that were likely going out of business, and you were going to fire sale them and collect a little bit more than what your
Yep.
investment would have been. Whereas,
Yep.
to your point, Charlie was looking at companies that say, listen, these aren't priced in the absolute dumpster like the stuff that Warren was buying on his own right, but they're things that were priced fairly, that had, free cash flow, that had a foreseeable growth pattern where they understood what the business's intent was. And to your point, that was a magnificent change that caused the both of them to come together and create one of the best investment portfolios of all time.
I couldn't agree more. You got another Charlie thought?
So I have a negative, Charlie. We always talk
Okay.
about the good things that
Yeah, I
that
like it.
people after they pass, and this is, I think, something that's different from what Charlie saw versus him understanding the consumer at the end of the day, and the consumer of stocks is what I'm
Okay.
getting at here.
Hmm.
So Charlie talked about the negative effect of diversification, and
Yes.
that's something that I really do fundamentally disagree with, because Charlie doesn't realize, or didn't talk about the fact that he had a team, an army of people working to start to understand what the actual fundamental value of a company is. If
Mm.
you are pillaging through 10K reports and have a great understanding of what management teams are doing and are interacting directly with management teams, yes, maybe you can own 20 underlying stocks. If you're an individual that is shooting from the hip, and regardless whether people say they're shooting from the hip or not, they're shooting from the hip for the most part,
Yeah,
you should
absolutely.
not have 10 stocks inside your portfolio. It is
Yeah.
something where one stock could absolutely blow you up and nuke your underlying wealth. And then what you do is you start to lose confidence in your ability to manage assets, and you sell out likely when things are at a bad time. And then, yeah, you've been there, right? Yeah. So you get exactly what I'm saying there. So I think I disagree with Charlie in the fact that he called it diversification. And I do think there's, and I'll talk on both sides of the mouth, and I will wrap this up real quick. I do think there is diversification that's intelligent diversification,
Yeah.
where you're putting multiple players on a team that do different things and complement each other. And then I do think that Charlie's point largely maybe would have been to this. There's diversification, meaning you have 50 underlying holdings, but they're all doing the same thing and not protecting you against anything inside a portfolio.
Yeah, it's funny because that was going to be the one I brought up next, and I have a slight twist on it. And you're absolutely right. I suffered from trying to buy individual stocks. It turned from very little into a lot, only to be cut down to barely anything. So you're totally right, because I stopped doing the work and all of that. But I step back from that now and say, I kind of agree with him, right? The whole idea of put your couple eggs in a basket and watch the freaking basket. For me, that was I had to pick. For me, I picked real estate, right? I got my ass kicked
Okay.
in stocks. Didn't have a team, didn't have the time, didn't have the energy, felt like a casino, blah blah blah. But when I went to real estate, it was real. And where I mean
Sure.
where for Charlie, his quote on diversification was, I got laser focused and did one thing for 3 years, right? One very small minutia thing for 3 years. And that turned out really, really well. I could not have done real estate and stocks and crypto and bonds and this and that and had a day job and had a family. So there's some of this that I think is dead on. I think some people diversify. I don't know if it's because they're lazy or don't have time, and maybe that's okay. It probably is okay. But if you're willing to go one way and be committed, you can get some outsized returns, I think.
I think your scenario is unique. I think that is the truth in the real estate space, because it is a tangible asset that
Mm.
is cash flow generative, and you can do work relatively easily, where it's a tangible, hands-on thing that you can improve yourself. You can't improve Tesla stock.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the thing you're like, okay, I'm passionate about this, you can't improve the prevailing winds, which are the global economy, etc. So I think things that are publicly traded, that are being repriced on a day-to-day basis, that you don't have control over, I think
Mhm.
that diversification is absolutely key in that space. So I guess agree to disagree, but I think we're looking at
Yeah,
it a
it's
little
fine.
bit in two different ways there too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all good. I mean, again, we're the reason you're on the show is you bring a completely different experience and skill set and knowledge
Certainly,
base
yeah.
than I have. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So at the end of the day, what do you think this means for Berkshire? What do you does Warren get a does Warren change it all now that his right hand man is not there? Does he feel mortal? I mean, what do you think? What happens next, if anything?
I don't know. It's so interesting. I mean, the two heads of this firm were 92 years old, I think is what Warren is right now. 92, 93, 94, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever, and 99. And
Yeah.
it's like the contingency planning there, it's not it's not perfectly clear, which is a scary thought, to be honest with you. Is okay, what happens now? You have one head gone. I would imagine there's going to be someone else that is going to start to be put in front of
Mm.
everyone, everywhere. And
Mhm.
I'm surprised it didn't happen prior. Who is the next guy? This is something that
Yeah.
I'm ashamed to say I can't even answer this.
Yeah,
Outside of
Warren
Warren and Charlie, who's the next guy?
Yeah, so they've been very clear. I forget his name. They've named the kind of heir apparent, but it's also been, not until, Warren is, laying down kind of thing, right? So,
Right. And also it's if I don't know that, I'm in this business. And
right.
you've read a lot about it, so you know who that is, or
Yeah.
are familiar with
Clearly
that.
don't
But
remember
like,
the name, but yeah, they've named
ye
somebody.
how much
Yeah.
confidence are you gonna have in that person as an investment, in potentially one share of a company that's what, $250,000 in Burke A?
That's right.
Like, are you
Kind of a
confident?
meaningful number.
Are you confident that that next person is ready to step in and manage? And I'm sure that they've been grooming. But I
Yeah.
think that from a public market standpoint, they need to do a better job of marketing that next
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, I think to your point, I think that's what we see. We now see that next person standing next to Warren Buffett in all interviews and all travel. Because you're right, Warren's not getting younger, and Father Time comes for us all.
Yeah.
So I think you've just nailed what happens next because I really didn't get it, but I think that's exactly what happens is you start to see the bench becomes clearer, if you will. Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
totally agree. All right, man. Well, where can people
Rest in
find you?
peace, Charlie. No doubt about it. An
Yeah,
all-time great.
rest in peace, Charlie. Where can they find you, Taylor?
Yeah, find us at Life Goal Investments. We're on both Instagram and TikTok daily. So
Uh,
thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you, buddy.